Good evening. First tonight, Tina Kotek says she's ready to get to work as Oregon's governor. Thank you for joining us. I'm Laurel Porter.
And I'm David Mulco. Even though the race remains close, the Oregonian has projected Kotek as the winner. So here's the vote tally as it stands tonight. Kotek with about 47% of ballots counted. Drazen just under 44% there. The Oregonian estimates at least 20% of votes cast are still outstanding. We should note the Associated Press has not yet called the race. So Kotek tweeted out just a few hours ago saying, quote, "I am honored and humbled to serve Oregon. I promise to be a governor for all of Oregon. I am ready to get to work and move Oregon forward," end quote. She is expected to speak tomorrow morning at 10, and we will be streaming that as it happens on KGW.com. So for her part, Christine Drazen has not conceded the race. She released a statement early today saying, quote, "We are grateful to the many thousands of Oregonians who made their voices heard in this historic election. We continue to monitor returns with the expectation that this race will tighten. We hope to release an additional statement later today," end quote. We have not heard from her campaign since.
Let's take a look at the biggest races still too close to call. And that includes two congressional races in Oregon. In the 5th District, Republican Lori Chavez Dreamer is leading Democrat Jamie McLeod Skinner by about 7,000 votes. If Chavez Dreamer wins, Republicans will flip the seat now held by Kurt Schrader. And in the new 6th Congressional District created after the 2020 census, Democrat Andrea Salinas leads Republican Mike Erickson by just over 3,000 votes. Salinas was on the legislative committee that drew up this new district.
All right, let's cross the Columbia to Washington's 3rd and the race between Democrat Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez and Republican Joe Kent. So Clark County added another 20,000 votes this evening. So tonight, Gluesenkamp-Perez stands at a little over 52%, Kent just under 48. But here's the thing. Clark County estimating at least another 70,000 ballots to count, plus other counties in the district, which appear to have something like 20,000 votes outstanding on top of that. So the bottom line here, this one could be a while.
And late tonight in Washington's U.S. Senate race, Republican candidate Tiffany Smiley conceded she lost her bid to oust longtime Senator Patty Murray. Murray got nearly 57% of the vote. And back in Oregon, there was one ballot measure that got a resounding yes vote.
Measure 113. It is aimed at preventing state lawmakers from running again if they have 10 or more unexcused absences during their term. Let's bring in Alma McCarty in the newsroom. Alma, you took a look at what this all means as we move forward.
Well, in simple terms, it's a way to prevent walkouts as a tactic to block legislation from passing. And this wasn't pushed by lawmakers. It was a grassroots, union-backed, citizen-initiated measure. Tonight, I spoke with a political science instructor and one-time state representative to learn more.
Of all the ballot measures voters could approve or deny, Measure 113 had the most support. At last count, more than 68% voted to amend Oregon's constitution to disqualify state lawmakers from re-election if they have 10 or more unexcused absences from legislative floor sessions.
I think the public, or certain portions of the public, just got fed up to their eyeballs with all of the maneuverings and manipulation.
Judy Stigler, now a political science instructor for OSU's Cascades campus in Bend, served as a Democratic state representative for Central Oregon more than a decade ago.
As I say, I was the one-term wonder back in the 2009-10 session.
She said walkouts have been used by both parties.
It's been a maneuver that's been utilized by different groups in the legislative process, and it's been used by both House members and Senate members.
Although no-shows have been used most recently by the Republicans to fight, for example, cap and trade bills.
The problem is when you have a party that's in the minority and they don't feel like their voice is being heard at all, they get frustrated. And I totally understand that. They want to make a point. And sometimes you have to go to fairly lengthy extremes to make that point.
Stigler says now the people have spoken, not only through votes, but how the ballot measure came about.
This was not a legislatively referred initiative. This was done by the citizens themselves. This was done by a group of people who went out and got signatures on a petition and got it qualified for the election. I think you had a mix of people that were of groups and citizens out there who were just, okay, enough is enough.
Although there was no organized group opposing the measure, several candidates and publications came out against it. That includes gubernatorial candidates Christine Drazan and Betsy Johnson, who said it would give the majority party too much power. As for what comes next, Stigler believes there will be some discussion around what an unexcused absence looks like, since there is no formal definition in the Oregon Constitution. David?
Still a lot of questions with that one. Thank you, Alma. The vote count on another Oregon ballot measure, by the way, much closer, though. The Oregonian has projected Measure 114 will, yes, also pass. It has been called one of the strictest gun control measures in the country. Pat Doris broke down some of the pieces tonight on The Story.
According to the Oregonian's projection, voters did approve it, but by a slim margin. What exactly will Measure 114 look like? Well, let's break it down and take a look. Anyone who wants to buy a gun in Oregon will have to get a permit first. Those will be issued by local law enforcement in a process that will be created and overseen by Oregon State Police. As of now, that process is still in flux. What we do know is the steps to getting a permit include completing a gun safety class, submitting to a federal criminal background check, which does include getting your fingerprints taken. The permits could cost up to $65 and would be good for 5 years. Once you've completed those steps and paid the fee, local law enforcement would have 30 days to issue the permit. And if you are denied, there is an appeal process. If you're approved for a permit, there's no limit to the number of guns you can buy. It's not like one permit is only good for one gun. These permits would not be required to own a gun, only to purchase one. That means that current legal gun owners do not need a permit unless they want to buy another gun. The measure also bans ammunition magazines that hold more than 10 rounds, with the exception of people who already own these magazines. You can keep them. The new ones just cannot be sold. The measure also closes a loophole in the system now, which says that anyone with a pending background check can still buy a gun after 3 business days. Well, that's not the case once the measure takes effect. So, when does this thing actually kick into gear? Well, Thursday, December 8th is the effective date of voter-approved measures, but because so much of this measure depends on programs and processes that haven't been implemented or executed yet, the practical impact on voters is basically still to be determined.
Well, there you go. At least one county sheriff has already said she does not plan to enforce the magazine capacity limit portion of the measure. Sheriff Michelle Duncan in Lynn County added that in her view, the measure is, quote, poorly written with a lot to sort out when it comes to the permitting and training process.
Portland voters approved a charter reform measure that would overhaul the way city government operates. These reforms would expand the council and divide the city into 4 geographic districts. Tim Gordon found out there's a lot of work ahead to make that happen.
The City of Portland held a news conference on Wednesday to lay out the plan for implementing Measure 26-228 that will fundamentally change the way city government operates.
Portland voters were heard loud and clear that they want an effective, accountable, representative, and responsive city government.
The big changes coming will scrap the commission form of government and create a city council with 12 members. 3 apiece will come from 4 districts in the city. And the mayor will become more of an administrator, working with a newly hired city administrator to manage the city. It all needs to be in place by the November 2024 election.
2 years from now, Portland will hold its first election using ranked choice voting and geographic districts.
Portland's chief administrative officer and others explained the work starts now. First, to create an independent district commission that will establish the 4 geographic voting districts, a 13-person commission Portlanders invited to apply. Then, a charter transition advisory committee will advise on the overall process. Details to come on that. And third, establishing a salary commission that will set salaries for elected officials. Again, the details will come.
We have our work cut out for us. To implement election reforms of ranked choice voting and district elections, we will immediately begin recruiting for the Independent District Commission.
Because 2 years may seem like a long time, but not when making big changes in the way Portland votes and is governed. So obviously a lot of things still to work out, including kind of nuts and bolts one. Where will this new 12-member council meet starting in January 2025? Here at City Hall, it's obviously not set up for that big a council at this point. Will they be able to make this work here? or will they need to go somewhere else? In downtown Portland, Tim Gordon, KGW News.
Sounds like a remodel in order. All right, stay with KGW and NBC News as votes continue to be counted locally and across the country. You can find up-to-the-minute totals anytime on all the key races at KGW.com and on the KGW app.
Let's get you caught up on tonight's other headlines. A 15-year-old girl is hurt after a shooting in northeast Portland this evening. It happened in the Montevilla neighborhood by 80th and Cooch. Police say the victim has serious injuries but is expected to survive. No arrests yet, but police say it is early in the investigation.
A Multnomah County judge has dismissed charges against a suspected arsonist. The 18-year-old was one of 3 suspects accused of setting fires on Mount Tabor. Now, it appears from court documents the DA's office has declined to pursue the case. A second suspect also had charges dismissed. A third was never charged. So we've reached out to the DA for comment, but have not heard back.
And a Portland firefighter is recovering tonight after he was hurt responding to a house fire this morning. The floor gave out on this home at Northeast 32nd and Wygant as he was walking inside. The firefighter fell into the basement. Luckily, team members got to him fast, and they say he's okay. The homeowner was not there at the time.